have been blown away by the Final Fantasy VII Remake. While the original is easily one of my favorites in the series, with all of its memorable moments, amazing soundtrack, and addictive materia system, I always felt its story, while having a really great foundation, was just shy of its true potential at the time, due to things like, localization and, technical limitations at the time. I remember getting really excited the moment I heard a remake was being created because I saw this as an opportunity to take the original tale and let it flourish to what it was always envisioned to be, no longer bound by anything. I'd say the remake delivered spectacularly, and while I know many people are unhappy with some of the changes it made, I feel that almost every tweak and new addition is actually for the better. Change isn't always a bad thing. I find stuff like storytelling and characterization really interesting, and I'm kind of an aspiring writer myself, so I just wanted to take a look at some of these great changes. I have to stress that this doesn't mean I found the original moments bad. Not even close. I simply think the remake took the opportunity to make them even better. This game is oozing with passion for the first game. It honors it by both following it and also making a few little tweaks and fine-tuning that I find absolutely improves it. It's smart enough to know what works and what doesn't. These changes range from really, really big ones to just tiny little tweaks and little additions that they made. Hopefully this goes without saying, but the following list will contain spoilers for not only the remake, but the entire original game as well. So, without further ado, friends, let's get started. These are all of the great changes and additions to the Final Fantasy VII Remake's story. Starting off with one of the smaller changes on our list, Cloud is no longer allowed in the Avalanche hideout. In the original Final Fantasy VII, after destroying Mako Reactor 1, Cloud and the gang retreat to Tifa's bar, where Avalanche plans out its next attack in their secret underground headquarters hidden via pinball machine. The machine makes a return in the remake, however, there's a big change here. We no longer get to go down there. I'm sure some were disappointed we didn't get to see this quirky room in glorious HD, but to me, this works better from a storytelling perspective. It makes more sense that Cloud isn't allowed to be down there. He's still an outsider at this point.
Before you do, about my pay.
You'll get your money. So sit down and shut up until we're finished.
He's unwelcome. He is not one of them. It really works. It makes the player feel isolated from this other world, the way the Cloud is. And maybe I'm crazy, but I felt that they used this moment to showcase a hint for Cloud's character. It's subtle, but I think you can tell by the look on his face, and the way he reacts to Jessie, that on some level it bothers him that he doesn't have a family. You can really see this in the subsequent scene where all the Avalanche members are getting together to celebrate, and Cloud is basically kicked out. I know this change was really here because in this version of the story Cloud isn't allowed on the second mission, but I feel it simply works better overall, and I like how Barrett hasn't warmed up to him yet at this point. It takes him a lot longer in this game. Second on our list, we have Jessies Homecoming. The Final Fantasy VII Remake is full of padding. Padding is essentially any segment adding to a game that is merely there to extend the runtime. It has no consequence, it doesn't move the plot forward, and in truth, it's kind of pointless. But not all padding is bad padding, at least in my opinion. Chapter 4 is a perfect example of just how great adding a non-consequential chapter to a game can be, because it takes this extra time to not only expand upon Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge's character, but to also show us an entire new section of Midgar that we had never seen before. Now that's what I'm talking about! This is exactly the sort of stuff I wanted to see. To my knowledge, this is the only time we really got to see what living conditions were like topside. I mean, sure, we do go there, eventually to, infiltrate the Shinra headquarters, but we didn't really get to see much of the wealthy life. Notice how much different it is compared to the slums. Unlike the underground sections of Midgar, where people roam the streets all night and find their entertainment in the world around them, the people of Sector 7 are rich, secure, sheltered in their homes, more so immersed in the luxuries they are able to afford. It's a cozier place, one of privilege. It's such a charming little chapter that adds so much more to the members of Avalanche. Jessie's story is an interesting one, and we are reminded of the emotional toll being a member of Avalanche can have on a person. And then we come to appreciate the sacrifices one might go to in order to do what is right. Jessie throws away a normal life in order to serve the greater good. I particularly love this line and how tragic it all is.
Figures. Still leaves the lights on every night. For the girl who only comes home once every other blue moon.
I also love how in the remake, it seems that Jessie is the one who initially starts to break Cloud's hard shell. It really gives her character a legacy, assuming of course that she's not coming back. We not only get love for Jessie, however, but a wonderfully cute section where Cloud gets to bond with Biggs and Wedge. I love their banter in this whole section.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me. Hell of a show, man. If only the ladies loved you that much.
I'm glad someone's enjoying themselves.
None of this was necessarily needed, but just try and tell me that their deaths would have hit just as hard if we didn't have any of this. The more I play this chapter, the more it becomes one of my favorites in the entire game. I also really love the entire atmosphere regarding the moments when our heroes land back on Sector 7. Things feel very, I don't know, whimsical here. Everyone's kind of just like cozy, nestled up, and settling down for the night, but they're still kind of enjoying the outdoors. It's almost like the game is teasing you for a moment that perhaps everything is going to be okay for Avalanche. But, as we all know, this is really just their last cheerful moment together as a team. Everything about this chapter just feels so down to earth. I love when we see stuff like this in video games. When we just take a moment to stop from the action, to just cool down, take a deep breath, and look at the world around us, and learn more about the characters that we're on this adventure with. Next up, we have Exiting the Train. This is just a tiny little addition that I want to quickly give a shout out to. It's yet another lovely moment between the new Avalanche members that gets us to care about them more and more. I particularly love the atmosphere of this scene. The way everyone's coming home, you know, like feeling all victorious and with their heads held high. They're really happy here, and we feel happy for them. We get to see them rising to their highest high, just before, of course, their lowest low. And we even get a few cute little lines to go with it.
Hot damn, we are good!
Yes! Bombs detonated 1, members lost 0.
And one step closer to a brighter future.
Hell yeah!
Guys! Lower your voices, huh? People are listening.
Oh, right.
The original had a scene like this, but it played out a little bit differently. Cloud's promise to Tifa. I personally love this change. Rather than just kind of having Tifa blurt it out upon seeing that Cloud is leaving the bar because he's like a dick, in the remake, Cloud remembers their fateful promise all on his own. It's a small change, but I think it makes Tifa and Cloud a little bit more likable. Tifa came off as a bit more needy to me in the original by holding this over Cloud, and Cloud kind of came off as a bit of more of a jerk for walking out on her and forgetting their promise. I mean, don't get me wrong, it worked in the original, but I think this is even better. What we get here is instead a beautifully tragic scene where Cloud witnesses the turmoil all of this is causing his best friend. And then the payoff for when he remembers that he would in fact do anything for her. There's something to be said about making your audience wait here. Cloud doesn't remember it right away, and he isn't reminded of it right away. Instead, we've established the heartache Tifa is feeling, and it sits with us for a while. It sits underneath Cloud's skin for a while too, until, BAM! The big payoff. In a beautiful moment, Cloud remembers their promise. This really hit hard to me, much more so than it did in the original. And I think you can tell that it's from this moment on that Cloud starts to show a different side to him. The reliable, good-natured side. The FF7 Remake is full of brilliant, subtle little character stuff like this. It's just so freaking well done. Fifth on our list, the Sun Lamp chapter. This is another one of those examples that I feel is an example of good padding in a video game. We don't really need the Sun Lamp chapter, but much like Jessie's Pizza Party, it adds to the overall experience, albeit in a different way. While Jessie's chapter added a lot to her character and the weight of her eventual death, the Sun Lamp chapter is an example of expanding the lore of the city of Midgar itself. The idea that the city isn't illuminated by natural sunlight, but rather humongous disc-shaped light emitters, is clever. It's one of those really neat dystopian sci-fi concepts that I wish I was smart enough to divulge its full brilliance. But it's a nice little touch that adds to the cold and harsh living conditions of the people of Midgar. We shut them down in this chapter as well, and because of this, Avalanche sticks it to Shinra in the remake beyond just, blowing up reactors. They do something new. This entire chapter just feels really bleak, dark. Really cool idea, Square. I dug it. Number 7. The Airbuster gets a makeover. Or should I say, a makeover. In the original game, the Airbuster was a boss battle that kind of appears out of nowhere to serve as the conclusion to Sector 5 Reactor. It was a simple plot device that was there because, well, of course, we need a boss here. President Shinra comically walks out with, no protection around him and gloats like a mustache-twirling villain, and then this big boy pops up and you have to fight it. It works, sure, but what about this instead?
Terrorists conspired with Mukai against Midgar. Your guilt is undeniable. Your punishment's death.
Talk about taking it to the nth degree! Final Fantasy VII Remake revolutionized the entire Airbuster segment, and it did so by revealing the monstrosity far before our heroes even have to fight it. We know it's coming now. Its threat is looming over us, persisting in our minds. And then we get a lovely and creative little gameplay segment where we actually get to nerf the damn thing, reminding us that it is a force to be reckoned with. This was the exact opposite of how it was used in the original. Instead, now the Airbuster has a reputation to live up to. It's been hyped up, and the sense of dread is there. The payoff, in my opinion, is entirely worth it, as we then get a spectacular scene where our heroes finally come face to face with their sworn enemy, and the introduction of the best boss battle theme in the entire game. What a great scene. I particularly love how Heidegger is added, and how both he and the President are now projected as holograms. It makes more sense. Why would this cowardly businessman ever show his face to a guy that, has a gun for an arm? Instead, they hide behind these large holograms that are much larger than the main characters. This is one of those kind of like magic camera angle things, right? These holograms shadow over our characters. A nice little cinematic trick of getting the audience to feel just how powerful Shinra truly is and how ill-equipped our heroes are to stop them. Number 8, picking flowers. I wondered if I should include this one, but what the heck. It's a super tiny addition that I think goes a long way. The original game had nothing like this, and to be fair, it probably wouldn't have worked quite as well given, the way the graphics looked back then, but I love this cute little moment. Some might call it slowing everything down, but I think that's the point. Cloud is a very forward-moving, eyes on the prize kind of guy who doesn't know the meaning of the words settle down. It's of course Aerith who basically forces him to, well, quite literally stop and smell the roses. He's annoyed by this, which is adorable, but it starts to humanize him. It's all completely simple and automatic, but it's such a cute, tender moment between these two. The characterization is really strong here. It brings out a lot of the humanity in Cloud, and I really like that they actually let the players experience it firsthand. I'll pick flowers with you any day, Aerith. Tifa and Aerith are besties! This is a personal one, but one that I might add makes for much more realistic female characters. Upon replaying the original Midgar section, I wasn't necessarily surprised, but was a little upset that these two lovely ladies are often pitted against each other for Cloud's approval. Tifa in particular has a few lines where she seems jealous of Aerith, which, to be fair, is understandable. I mean, these two have known each other for a long time. Don't get me wrong, the two do warm up to each other in the original game as well. But gosh, to redo the whole girls are jealous of each other trope again, Surely not, right? Well, Remake delivered by instead opting for a really lovely friendship between Aerith and Tifa. They're constantly lifting each other up this time around. Hell yes, I say! More lovely ladies rooting for each other. They even go as far as to flirt a bit with each other.
Can I come? You'd better.
Then it's a date.
It's just so goddamn cute. Ugh, thank you so much, Square, for making Aerith and Tifa best friends and for giving us one of the best girl power sequences I've ever seen in a game. Oh, this meant so much. Number 10, Woolmarket. All of it. Woolmarket seems to be the area of the game that is most changed in the remake. And holy hell is it all for the better. This is my favorite part of the entire game. It honestly is. I found everything that happened here to be absolutely perfect from beginning to end. I just want to gush about it. Oh, where to even begin? Nearly everything is changed. Instead of Woolmarket just seeming like a slightly glorified version of the slums like it did in the original, here it's instead a bustling, sleazy, Vegas-like city where there are few rules and people indulge in whatever makes them happy regardless of any moral implications. It's dark, it's on some level charming, and the best part? There are times where you even kinda wonder if you want to live here. Sure, the original quest for Cloud's dress was charming, finding all of the pieces one by one, all of the fun mini-games, but the remake instead decided to introduce a whole new cast of charming and super memorable characters. Ones like the hot-headed Madam M, the cool and suave Chocobo Sam, and Andrea! God, I freaking love Andrea! It all just feels so alive. The culture and atmosphere of Woolmarket is palpable. The new theme fits with the tone perfectly. The city is crowded, packed with people partying their days away in tight spaces. People are vomiting in alleyways. The town is glitzy and glamorous, but also dirty and feels lived in. Alright, I'm getting carried away from the actual story, but I'm just so in love with this segment. Well, they also added a completely new story beat in the Coliseum. I've always found tournaments to be a really easy way to hype up your audience and root for your characters. And the remake takes advantage of this beautifully. The storytelling is incredibly strong here. Cloud and Aerith have a goal, one that we easily understand, and they are faced with an obstacle from achieving that goal. I just love the way these awesome announcer guys hype up the crowd, the roaring cheers, the electrifying music. It gets you so pumped. They paint Cloud and Aerith as underdogs. The audience laughs at them, and everyone expects you to fail. Even the big three watch over your performance. All of these elements combine to really, really make you want to just prove everyone wrong. You want to get out there and show them what you're made of. You want to make Woolmarket history. It's just so good. All of this, of course, peaks with the wonderfully charming Honeybee Inn sequence, Cloud's famous cross-dressing moment, and the pivotal confrontation against Don Corneo. Throw in a wonderfully charming new segment with Tifa and Aerith, and damn, what a show.
We did it!
Aerith says the name. Okay, don't get me wrong, I adore both scenes here. In fact, the remake's version of this scene is my favorite scene in the entire game. It's absolutely beautiful from beginning to end. I could gush about it for hours, but there is one significant little change here. Instead of Aerith simply mentioning that she had a boyfriend who fits Cloud's description, she actually says Zack's name. I imagine this was very intriguing for players. Just why did Cloud have that reaction? What name did she say? And oh shit, that entire beautiful moment just got super eerie all of a sudden. It's a tiny change, but a better one. Next up on our list, the Leslie Sewer Quest. This is another one that's probably going to be controversial, but really think back on the original Final Fantasy VII and remember how all this played out. After deciding to go rescue Aerith, the crew wonders how they can possibly reach topside, and in a desperate attempt, they decide maybe Woolmarket will have the answer. Sure, why not? You're then approached by the most perfect timing in the entire world. You just waltz right up and you happen to see some random NPCs who mention that they found a wire, and then you follow them, and like magic, there you go. There's a way to climb up the plate. Kind of weak, to be honest, though completely understandable that they wanted to save time back then. The remake tried something a little different. Some could call this really bad filler, but I actually liked how our method of returning to the plate felt much more inspired and well thought out this time around. And they used this time to flesh out a character who admittedly becomes more likable. I mean, it's not like all of this really comes out of left field just to extend the runtime. We had already met Leslie, and we kind of already figured that there was something unsaid about his character, right? Leslie's story was sweet. It kind of tugged at your heartstrings a bit. We even get to see the Dawn again. Visually, I would have absolutely preferred a new area, and the part when that rat thing steals, like, Leslie's, pendant for no reason, that was pretty dumb. But upon looking back, I feel that this moment really kind of works. And if you really think about it, this is actually our last time really kind of bonding with anyone from the city of Midgar before we actually leave it. Because it's basically just guns blazing after this. The 13th great story change in the remake? Aeriths Desperate Dash. Sometimes it's nice to have a little mystery in the plot. Sometimes it's acceptable to have your viewers have to fill in the blanks on what happened behind the scenes. That was the case for the original, when Aerith was suddenly captured just before the plate fell. We see that she was clearly taken, and we just kind of easily just figure out that, okay, it happened behind the scenes. But sometimes it's even better to actually show the events that transpired, which led to something. Though it doesn't necessarily change anything story-wise, I love how we actually get to play as Aerith during her mad dash to rescue Marlene. In the original, we never get quite a sense of the chaos that engulfs Sector 7 as Avalanche is fighting to protect the plate. That wasn't the case here. Between the fire, the hysterical running citizens, the helicopters roaring in the distance, you can really feel all of the panic. This is a really great atmospheric addition. And what's more, I think actually seeing Aerith's fateful reunion with Sung was not only satisfying for old players, but also probably intriguing for new players, right? It added yet another temporary mystery to this enigmatic girl. Just who is this guy? Why do these two know each other? What did Aerith show Marlene just now? Giving us this brief slice of humanity amongst the action with Cloud was such a beautiful touch. It helped make us care even more about what all of our heroes are fighting for here. This is small stuff, but it's a perfect example of how small stuff can really go a long way.
Wait, Daddy's not coming home?
Not yet. That's why I came to find you. Tifa asked me to. She said, take care of Marlene.
14th on our list, Sneaking Through the Garage. Shinra is the most powerful force in all of Midgar. Hell, they are Midgar. They're an all-powerful militaristic company that doesn't screw around. So, would you really just be able to barge right in the front door or just take the stairs willy-nilly? This is another case where I can see why it played out the way it did in the much older game, but the remake could have easily opted for something similar. Instead, we get a nice and clever little sequence where our characters have to hitch a ride, sneak through the garage, and wind up in the back door. It makes a lot more sense, and it added to the threat of Shinra, in that they are a company that is only going to be taken down by something like stealth and sneaky tactics. Seeing the president die. I know, this is going to be a controversial one, but hear me out. The way all this played out in the original is absolutely brilliant, make no mistake. And as an overall story decision, I think it's much better. However, the remake isn't an overall story. It's just part one of a larger branching storyline. And therefore, I would argue that the finale needed a bit more oomph to it than what we got in the original. As wonderful as the horrific direction of, that original Shinra headquarters section was, finding the blood trail, which, yes, was much better than purple goop, and then discovering the president's impaled body, it might not have worked quite as well for the finale of an entire part. And while I do think there are aspects of the story here that are worse, I do like this one detail here. I like the fact that in this one we actually do get to see Sephiroth stab the president. I was really pumped the first time I saw this. Even though you kinda know that it's coming, it's really satisfying the way all the tension rises up as Barrett's telling the president off.
For sentiment or guilt.
And then all of that tension just explodes as Sephiroth appears on the scene. He changes the game here. He sets the stage for everything that is to come in one fell thrust. And I like how Barrett is actually given the chance to tell the president prior, the man he despises more than anyone, a piece of his mind, just before he's killed. So yeah, not necessarily a better story decision, but a better one for this particular game in my opinion. And last but certainly not least, friends, the exciting Shinra HQ Escape. Okay, let's set the stage. It's the end of the story. The playing field has been leveled. President Shinra is dead. Sephiroth is the true villain. The game has changed. It's time for our exciting escape from Shinra headquarters. So how does each game go about it? Well, in the original game, our heroes easily make their way back to the entrance as Sephiroth has, murdered everyone in sight. And they then realize that a mob of Shinra soldiers awaits them outside. Cloud comically approaches with a huge bike, and our heroes find a way to sneak out by busting the window of the top floor. Not bad, and to be frank, it definitely works. But remember, the remake isn't just the end of a chapter, it's the end of a 40-hour epic. And so, the stakes are raised a bit here. Instead of simply sneaking out, Tifa, Barrett, Red 13, and Aerith are ambushed by Shinra guards, and Heidegger, who laughs at their misfortune. We are reminded that even though the president is dead, Shinra is still a very real threat that we should be paying attention to. They're not going away anytime soon. All hope seems lost. Our characters are pinned down until...
Wait!
I screamed in victory and raised my fists into the air when I saw this. It's just so much better on every level. Cloud gets a heroic moment as he saves his newfound friends in ultimate style. He's a changed man. He's become the hero of our story. We then blast our way out of the building, and the stakes have never been higher. This works so much better for the end of a whole game, and I really don't find it to be excessive at all. It's just perfect. Whew, and I think that's about it. Holy cow, that took a lot longer than I expected. But hey, that's how great of a remake this game truly is. Whether it's subtle or more overt, Final Fantasy VII Remake is constantly throwing in changes to the story that improve the overall experience. At least in my opinion. And it does so with some really well done writing and a loving use of things like cinematography and musical arrangement. This game is like a cinematic masterpiece. Honestly, just please go play it if you haven't. I hope you enjoyed my weird and obsessive take on these changes. Do you agree with them? Do you think I got it wrong on some of them? And most importantly, if I happen to list any that were in fact in the original, please let me know so I can correct it. What was your favorite change? I'd love to hear all your thoughts. Whew, what a beautiful game Square has given us. Wow.